The Legend of Jigong, Chapter 119.
So our sole source today is a translated excerpt detailing a very specific, action-packed, and highly morally complex day in the life of this ragged magical monk. We are going to decode the bizarre intersection of spiritual magic, petty street scams, and cosmic justice. Our mission today is to find out exactly how a protagonist who looks like a literal beggar delivers a masterclass in chaotic good.
What's fascinating here is how the narrative uses incredibly grounded, mundane details like the exact price of renting a street table or the specific ingredients baked into a fake magical pill to anchor a story about literal teleportation magic. It grounds the fantasy in a very recognizable, almost bureaucratic reality.
It's the economics of ancient street grist.
Exactly.
And it starts with a bang. We jump right into the middle of the action. There's this Taoist named Sun Do-Quan. He's got his sword raised, ready to execute two men, Lai Ming and Chen Liang. And we quickly find out these two are Jigong's disciples.
So the stakes are immediate.
All right, the stakes couldn't be higher. But before the blade can fall, a shout rings out from a nearby temple. He says, "Ha ha! Good hairy one, stop bullying my disciples. Let me come and measure my strength against yours."
It's a classic heroic entrance cue. The villain is poised to strike, and the savior announces himself. But then the author deliberately undercuts that entire trope by giving us the physical description of the savior stepping out of the shadows.
It's completely wild. He's wearing a torn monk's robe with missing sleeves and a short collar. His hair is barely 2 inches long and completely matted with knots. His face is just caked in grime. He's barefoot, and he's shuffling forward in two mismatched straw sandals. Which, I mean, this raises an important question. If you're casting a hero to save the day, why make him repulsive? This is the exact opposite of the aesthetic we expect. It's like the ultimate anti-influencer vibe.
It really is a massive subversion of expectations, but it serves a very specific mechanical purpose in this universe. In a lot of spiritual traditions, particularly within the Buddhist and Taoist folklore of this era, extreme attachment to physical appearance is a literal anchor. It ties you to the material world.
Like vanity is a weight holding you down.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
By being utterly repulsive, filthy, ragged, completely mismatched, Jigong is signaling his absolute detachment from societal norms. But it also functions as a psychological trap for everyone he encounters. People constantly underestimate him because they judge his spiritual power by his material poverty.
Oh, wow. And he absolutely weaponizes that underestimation.
Yeah.
So Jigong ambles up to this incredibly tense standoff. He doesn't pull out a glowing weapon. He doesn't start a martial arts duel. He just casually says, every grievance has its source, every debt its debtor. He waves his hand and just effortlessly shatters a high-level binding spell that was holding his disciples.
The Ding Shen Fa.
Right. And how exactly does a spell like that work in this context? Because it doesn't sound like they're tied up with ropes.
No, the Ding Shen Fa is a spiritual immobilization technique. Think of it like a localized paralysis induced by spiritual pressure. The victims are frozen, utterly helpless. It requires significant magical concentration from the Taoist to maintain it. And Jigong just casually waves his hand and turns it off like a light switch.
Wow.
That casualness establishes a massive power differential right out of the gate.
It totally destabilizes the Taoist. Sun Do-Quan sees this beggar casually swat away his high-level magic. So when Jigong asks him to step aside for a private chat, the Taoist agrees. He's probably deeply confused. They walk away to find a quiet spot, and then boom, Jigong just vanishes. He doesn't run away. He literally blinks out of existence.
Leaving the Taoist entirely alone, profoundly confused, and most importantly, completely broke.
Yes, his travel funds are depleted. And this sets up the first major pivot in our story. What does a defeated, dark magic-wielding Taoist do when his bank account hits zero?
Well, he pivots to street-level grifting. He becomes a medieval snake oil salesman. And this is where those grounded, mundane details really shine. The lore doesn't just say, oh, he tricked people with magic. It breaks down the exact anatomy of the scam.
It is a step-by-step recipe for fraud. Sun Do-Quan goes out and buys 2 caddies of sliced cake called qigao. He takes this cake back to his room and meticulously digs out all the little dates and beans baked into it. He rolls the remaining dough into little round balls.
He's manufacturing fake medicinal pills.
Exactly. But dough balls don't look miraculous. So he buys flying gold, which is essentially gold foil, and carefully coats the dough balls until they look shiny, precious, and esoteric.
But he doesn't stop at the visual. This is what makes it a masterclass in deception. He takes those golden dough balls and smokes them over real medicinal herbs.
Oh, right.
Why? Because when he hands them to a skeptical buyer, the first thing they're going to do is smell them. By making them smell intensely of real medicine, he bypasses their primary sensory defense. It's a brilliant, cheap counterfeit.
It's all theater. But a performance needs a stage, right? He goes down to the Cantan Gate and rents a street table. And the account gives us the exact cost, 100 coins a day.
I love that detail. It grounds the fantasy in immediate economic reality. It reminds us that even magical villains have overhead costs.
Right.
They have daily rent to pay. They have to clear 100 coins just to break even on the day's grift.
He sets up his rented table, and he adopts a whole new persona.
Yeah.
He completely rebrands. He claims to be the Plum Blossom Taoist from Plum Blossom Ridge on Plum Blossom Mountain.
It's very aggressive branding.
So much branding. He spins this elaborate origin story for the crowd. He says he was meditating deep in his caves, felt a whim in his heart, did some magical finger calculations, and realized the people of this specific town were suffering. So he wrote a magical cloud down to sell the medicine.
The audacity of the pitch is staggering. He claims the pills come directly from Taishang Lojun, one of the supreme deities in Taoism. And look at the target audience he's aiming for. He claims this pill cures fatigue, organ damage, pregnancy complications, abdominal masses.
Everything.
Right. He is casting the widest possible net, preying on the most desperate people in the crowd.
You know, it reminds me of those shady wellness influencers you see online today. They throw around scientific-sounding buzzwords, claim one specific powder cures everything from anxiety to digestion, and all costs an absolute fortune. But this guy has something those influencers don't. He has a hook, a literal magic trick to close the sale.
The wooden box.
Right. He brings out this small wooden box. He tells people to put their money inside, however much they want to spend. A customer steps up and drops in 200 coins. The Taoist closes the lid, points his finger at it, yells "Infinite Buddha," and opens it back up. The 200 coins are completely gone, and sitting there in its place is one of his golden dough cake pills.
The crowd goes wild, and the narrative explicitly pauses here to tell us why this works. The narrator steps in with a crucial observation. People in the world marvel at what they rarely see. The crowd thinks they are witnessing divine magic, but we, the audience, are immediately given the mechanical explanation behind the trick.
Because it's not divine magic at all. It's a real spell called Banyun Fa, a transportation or carrying magic.
Exactly. He possesses actual, verifiable, supernatural power. He can literally teleport matter. But how is he using it? He's using high-level mystical arts to secretly teleport the copper coins from the wooden box directly into his own waist pouch and teleport the fake pill from his sleeve into the box.
It's just a rigged vending machine.
It is an incredible commentary on corruption. Instead of seeking enlightenment or using this extraordinary power to help people, he's using teleportation to run a street hustle on a rented folding table.
He's so arrogant about it, too. He tells the crowd, "Don't think this box is small. It can hold the 3 mountains and the 5 sacred peaks. Try it. Put in 1,000 coins, they'll vanish. Put in 800, they'll vanish." And people are just throwing their money at him because they want to see the trick, and they desperately want the miracle cure.
This sets up the perfect dichotomy for the chapter. On one side of the street, you have the Taoist. He is dressed in his impressive robes, speaking with grand spiritual authority, and using real magic to systematically rob the gullible. And then, watching from a distance, you have Jigong.
The guy who looks like a pile of dirty laundry.
Precisely. Jigong sees exactly what's happening. He recognizes the Banyun Fa teleportation spell immediately. He knows the pills are just sliced cake and gold foil. But this is where the story shifts, because instead of just marching up and punching the Taoist, Jigong's tension is drawn away to a completely different scene.
Yeah, this is where we shift from a funny scam to something genuinely poignant. While all these people are throwing hundreds of coins at a charlatan just for the novelty of a magic trick, Jigong notices a woman sitting on the ground nearby. Her name is Zhang Wuxi. She has a sign written out on coarse, rough paper. The sign explains that her husband is away on a long trading trip, her mother-in-law has just passed away, and she has absolutely no money. Not for a coffin, not even for burial clothes. She is begging for help so her mother-in-law's body won't be left exposed to the elements.
It is a devastating juxtaposition. You have wealth flowing freely into the pockets of a liar promising miracles, while genuine human suffering and a plea for basic dignity are being completely ignored. The account notes that plenty of people are standing around reading the widow's sign, but absolutely no one is giving her a single coin. It's infuriating. So Jigong walks up to the crowd around the widow and says, "You people have money. Giving her a few hundred would be a good deed." And immediately, a wealthy bystander standing nearby decides to mock him. This guy is literally carrying 500 strings of cash. Let's contextualize that for a second. A string of cash is usually 1,000 copper coins, right?
Yes, threaded together through the square holes in the center of the coins.
So this guy is carrying around 500,000 coins. He is flaunting massive, obscene wealth while a woman begs for a basic wooden coffin. And this rich guy looks at Jigong's dirty clothes and says, "Don't just talk cheap, monk. Whatever you give her, I'll match it."
The bystander is entirely focused on the outward aesthetic. He sees the missing sleeves, the grime, the mismatched sandals, and assumes the monk is penniless. He is using his vast wealth to publicly bully a beggar, but he picked the wrong beggar. Jigong accepts the challenge. He says, "I'll give one string." And the rich guy scoffs.
Yeah.
"Because you're just a poor monk, I wouldn't dare not match you. I'll give one string." So Jigong reaches into his torn, seemingly empty pocket. He chants a quick spell, Om Chile, and he pulls out a massive, heavy string of cash. Over 1,000 coins. He just hands it to the widow.
The bystander is stunned. He realizes he's in deep, but his pride won't let him back down. He says, "All right, I'll give another 500.
Jigong doesn't even blink. He reaches back into his pocket. Om Chile. Pulls out 300. Reaches it again, pulls out 200.
Then the author introducing two of the most brilliant audience surrogate characters I've ever seen in folklore, Zongda and Li Er.
Oh my gosh, these two guys. They're the comic relief, but they are also the crucial scientific witnesses to the magic. So Zongda and Li Er are just two friends out for a stroll. And the folklore gives us this incredibly specific, weird detail to set up the proof. Zongda's hands are numb. For whatever reason, his hands are numb, so he gives his money to his friend Li Er to hold for him.
And it's not just a generic handful of money. The account specifies exactly what it is down to the color. It is 200 yellow copper coins, and they are strung together on a very specific red silk thread. This is the smoking gun.
Right, so Zongda hands this highly recognizable string of yellow coins on a red thread to Li Er, because Zongda has to go use the restroom. While he's gone, Li Er wanders over and sees the Taoist doing his magic trick with the box. Li Er desperately wants one of those miracle pills, but he doesn't have his own money. So he takes his friend's 200 yellow coins on the red silk thread, drops them in the wooden box, and gets a fake pill.
Zongda eventually comes back from the bathroom and asks for his money. Li Er admits he spent it on a magic pill, but promises to pay him back later. Zongda is understandably annoyed, but he lets it go. Then the two of them wander over to the other side of the street, where Jigong is having his intense standoff with the rich bystander.
And this is the payoff. Zongda is watching this filthy monk pull handful after handful of money out of his empty pocket to give to the begging widow. And suddenly, Jigong reaches in and pulls out 200 yellow copper coins strung on a red silk thread. Zongda recognizes it instantly. He turns to Li Er and says, "How did my string of coins end up in the monk's waist pouch?" And Li Er, completely baffled, just says, "Truly bizarre." But Zongda and Li Er don't just accept it as a weird coincidence.
What?
They essentially run a scientific test. They run back across the street to the Taoist table. They stand there and watch another customer walk up with 500 coins and drop them in the wooden box. The Taoist yells, "Infinite Buddha," opens the box, and the 500 coins are gone.
At which point, Zongda and Li Er physically sprint as fast as they can back across the street to Jigong.
They get there just in time to see Jigong reach into his pocket, say Om Chile, and pull out exactly 500 coins, the exact same denomination. And these two guys completely abandoned whatever they were supposed to be doing that day. They just spend the entire afternoon running back and forth between the two scammers. Watching a guy put 800 coins in the box, sprinting across the street, watching Jigong pull 800 coins out of his pocket. It's like watching a magical tennis match.
It's hilarious physical comedy, but it serves a profound thematic purpose. By tracking the exact flow of the money, it establishes a very clear, very satisfying moral ecosystem. You have three distinct parties operating here. First, the gullible and the greedy, the crowd paying the Taoist. They are willingly parting with their wealth in pursuit of unearned miracles and shortcuts. Second, you have the wicked, the Taoist, who is exploiting that desperation for his own personal gain. And third, you have the holy, Jigong.
Wait, if the crowd is being scammed, why doesn't Jigong just give the money back to the people who put it in the box?
That's the brilliance of the moral ecosystem. The crowd is participating in a corrupt transaction. They are trying to buy a shortcut to health from a shady dealer. So the money flows from the gullible to the wicked and is ultimately intercepted and redirected by the holy to the righteous, the widow who truly needs it. Jigong doesn't magically create new wealth out of thin air. He redistributes existing wealth. He restores a cosmic balance by turning a malicious grift into an act of profound charity.
Robin Hood's the teleportation magic. And he does it all without the Taoist even realizing he's being robbed. The Taoist is standing there all afternoon thinking he's having a banner day. He thinks he is raking in a fortune. Which brings us to the evening and the absolute crushing comeuppance of Sun Daoquan.
This is the moment the ledger is closed, the sun goes down, the crowds finally disperse. The Taoist thinks to himself, I've conned quite a bit of money today, time to head back to the inn. He reaches into his heavy waist pouch, expecting to feel the weight of his ill-gotten wealth.
And it is completely, utterly empty. Not a single copper coin left. The Taoist is stunned. He mutters, weird. And who is standing right there, waiting for this exact moment all afternoon? Zhangda and Lair.
The ultimate audience surrogates, ready to deliver the punchline.
They just smile at him and say, it's gone. The Taoist immediately accuses them of stealing it, but Zhangda says, we didn't even come near you. How could we take it? The Taoist demands to know how they know it's gone, and they gleefully explain the whole thing. They tell him they've been running back and forth watching the whole time. Every 500 coins that went into your box, that poor monk over there pulled 500 coins out of his pocket. He gave all your money away to buy a coffin.
The realization must be crushing. The Taoist realizes it was Jigong hacking his spell all along. He gets furious, his beard and eyebrows stand on end, and he vows to go fight the monk to the death. But remember that mundane economic detail from earlier, the overhead cost. It comes back to bite him perfectly.
The table rental. As the Taoist is about to storm off and exact his revenge, the guy who rented him the table steps in front of him and says, hold on, Taoist. You owe me 100 coins for the table rent.
The Taoist has to admit he has zero money. The rental guy doesn't care about his magical feud. He just wants his rent. So the Taoist is forced to leave his fly whisk as collateral at a paper shop across the street.
Let's talk about the fly whisk for a second. That's not just the tool for swatting bugs, right?
Not at all. In Taoist tradition, the fly whisk is a profoundly sacred symbol. It represents the sweeping away of worldly desires, ignorance, and evil thoughts. It is a badge of spiritual office. For a Taoist master to hand over his fly whisk to a random paper shop owner to cover a 100 coin debt for a rented folding table, it is a massive spiritual and public demotion. He's completely humiliated, stripped of his wealth and his religious symbol, all because of his own greed.
It is poetry. And meanwhile, across the street, Jigong has collected over 20 strings of cash for the widow. That's 20,000 coins. He hands it over to her, tells her to go buy the coffin and properly bury her mother-in-law, and then he throws in a little actual prophecy for free. He tells her, your husband will be back in half a month. The widow bows to him with deep gratitude and leaves. It is a perfect, clean, emotionally satisfying resolution. The villain is punished, the innocent are saved, and the hero's job is done.
Yeah, it feels like the natural end of the story.
It totally does. You expect the credits to roll right here, but that is not what happens, because this is Jigong and things are never that simple. Just as we think the story is wrapping up cleanly, Jigong looks up at the sky, and suddenly his entire demeanor completely changes.
The folklore describes it intensely. A surge of anger pierced the heavens. Jigong says, Amitabha, how can I not intervene in this matter? As soon as one thing is finished, another begins.
He is furious. Holy wrath is radiating off of him. And what is the target of this divine anger? Is it a demon? Is it a corrupt government official? No. He looks down the street and sees, well, a newly opened restaurant.
Specifically, a restaurant called the Double Righteousness Pavilion.
It's their grand opening. The place is completely decked out. There are red silk ribbons everywhere, congratulatory banners from friends saying things like, may your wealth be abundant and may your profits reach the three rivers. It is packed to the gills with people. And why is it so busy? Because they are running a half-price grand opening special. Dishes that normally cost 120 coins are selling for 60. Dishes that cost 240 are going for 120.
It seems like a completely normal celebratory business event, but the narrator inserts a very cryptic, specific warning here. The text says, greed for cheap things ruins the poor.
Greed for cheap things ruins the poor. We need to keep that line in mind, because what happens next is wild. Jigong lifts the curtain and walks into this packed restaurant. There's nowhere to sit. But he spots a fat man who has just arrived. This guy is sitting alone, but he's taking up 2 spaces by resting his leg across the bench.
A classic display of entitled behavior, taking up more space than he needs.
Totally. So Jigong doesn't say, excuse me, he doesn't politely ask the man to move his leg. Jigong just walks over and literally sits down directly on top of the fat man's leg.
The man is obviously startled and annoyed. He says, "Monk, aren't you uncomfortable?" And Jigong just deadpans, "I find it very soft, doesn't bother me at all."
The waiter rushes over to de-escalate the situation and forces them to share the table. The fat man is seething, but he's waiting for his order, a plate of southern fried meatballs. Jigong tells the waiter he also wants a plate of southern fried meatballs plus a pot of wine. He says, "I'm in no rush. I'll eat whenever the food comes."
But of course, he has absolutely no intention of waiting.
None. The waiter brings out the first plate of meatballs, which belongs to the fat man. The second the plate hits the table, Jigong reaches over, grabs the meatball, and shoves it in his mouth. The waiter yells at him, "That's the fat master's order, not yours."
And this is where Jigong escalates from merely annoying to actively repulsive.
He says, "Oh, if it's his, I'll give it back." And he spits the chewed-up meatball back onto the plate, completely covered in phlegm.
It's a deeply gross, visceral tactic.
The fat man is entirely disgusted. He yells, "I don't want this anymore." The waiter tries to calm the fat man down and says he'll get a fresh order. But when the second plate arrives, the waiter says, "Okay, these meatballs must be for the monk." And Jigong says, "Yes, these are mine," and starts grabbing them. The fat man is so furious and disgusted by sitting next to this guy that he just gets up and leaves to find another table. And Jigong happily sits there and eats both plates of meatballs. And the folklore leaves us on a massive cliffhanger that underscores just how dangerous this muddy, chaotic approach can be. After Jigong eats the meatballs and asks for the bill, the narrator drops this absolute bomb. It says, "The Arhat Jigong used his Buddhist magic and displayed great divine power, wanting to play a joke on the manager." Who would have thought that this would conjure up a murder case? And that's exactly where the chapter ends. If you want to know what happens next, listen to the next chapter's breakdown.